Get ready for a quick quest guide for the Lost Tribe quest, in which the main rewards for completing are access to the Dorgeshuun mine, access to Nardok's bone weapon store that sells the Dorgeshuun crossbow, bone bolts and bone weapons, the ability to use the goblin bow and salute emotes, as well as 3000 mining experience and 1 quest point. You'll need to have completed the Rune Mysteries and Goblin Diplomacy quest before taking on this one, and when it comes to skill requirements, you'll need level 13 agility, level 13 thieving, and level 17 mining. Then in terms of items, you'll want any pickaxe that you can use, as well as a light source. Note that if you're using lower tier light sources such as candles which can go out, then you'll also want a tinderbox. When it comes to recommended items, you'll want 1 stamina potion to help with the running around. Then for teleports, you'll want 3 Lumbridge Teleports, with one of these teleports being an emergency teleport. You will also want 1 Varrock Teleport and additionally 1 Mind Altar Teleport. Now you can begin this quest on the middle floor of Lumbridge Castle, in the more northern of the 2 rooms on the level. To start, talk to Sigmund and begin by asking, "Do you have any quests for me?" and afterwards select yes to officially begin the quest. Now you'll need to talk to up to 4 people around Lumbridge and see what they say. One will mention that they saw a goblin in the basement, and once that's mentioned you can stop chatting to people and move on. We'll start by going down the southern staircase and then north into the kitchen before talking to the cook. Ask, "Do you know what happened in the castle cellar?" and see if he mentions seeing anything. Provided he says nothing, head outside the castle and look for Hans, who is constantly walking around the castle, and then talk to him and ask, "Do you know what happened in the cellar?" And provided he saw nothing, you'll now want to head out of the castle and a little south to Bob's axe shop. Chat to Bob and ask, "Do you know what happened in the castle cellar?" and see if he mentions anything unusual. Provided he saw nothing, go into the church to your east and talk to Father Arek and go through the chat, and he should mention something unusual. After any of the 4 people have mentioned finding something strange in the basement of the castle, you'll then want to return to where you started the quest on the middle floor of Lumbridge Castle. Talk to Duke Horakio and mention that someone saw something in the cellar, and then continue through the chat with him and Sigmund, who joins in on the conversation. Once the chat finishes, head back downstairs and go into the kitchen and then climb down the trapdoor to the basement. Go to the southeastern corner of the basement, and along the eastern wall will be some rubble. Use your pickaxe on the rubble to clear a hole, then ensure you have a lit light source and squeeze through the hole, and following this run a tad southeast and pick up the brooch that's lying on the floor. While here, go a little south and then use your pickaxe on the hole to clear a path which will create another entrance to the Lumbridge caves going forward. Brooch in hand, retrace your steps back to the Lumbridge Castle cellar, going through the hole in the wall and then travelling back up the ladder, before heading up the staircase nearby to return to where you began the quest. Talk to Duke Horakio and say, "I dug through the rubble," before continuing through the chat with the Duke and Sigmund. Next, teleport to Varrock and run north a little ways, going into the palace and continuing to the library located at the very back of the palace. Talk to Reldo inside and select Ask about the brooch, and continue through the chat. Afterwards, search the most northern bookcase along the western wall of the library to find a goblin symbol book. Read the book and go through the pages before closing it to realize that the brooch matches the Dorgeshuun goblins. Now use your Mind Altar Teleport to teleport besides the Mind Altar, and after arriving, run around the walled off goblin village by going west and then going south for a little while, before looping north into the village when possible. Continue north and make your way to the general's house at the back of the goblin village. Talk to either of the generals and begin by asking, "Have you ever heard of the Dorgeshuun?" before following up with, "It doesn't really matter," and then saying, "Well, either way they refuse to fight," and after some more chatter, "Well, I found a brooch underground," and then finally, "Well, why not show me both greetings?" to then learn the goblin victory salute and the goblin bow emotes. Having learnt the emotes, teleport back to Lumbridge and then go into the castle nearby. Once inside, go to either staircase and head up to the middle floor of the castle and go back to the room with Sigmund and the Duke. Talk to Duke Horacio and say, I spoke to the generals in the Goblin village, and then continue through the dialogue with him, whereby you'll notice Sigmund is very keen on the wall. Now go downstairs and into the castle's kitchen, and then down the trapdoor into the basement before going down to the hole in the wall and squeezing through it. Ensure that your light source is lit, and now you need to very carefully navigate through the Goblin maze, following the path in the on-screen map. Use your mini-map to travel, which will auto-path you in a way that avoids the traps. Do note the following though. If you go off the correct path, your light sources can be extinguished and you can either be dealt damage by having a rock fall on you, or worse, fall down a trapdoor and end up in the Lumbridge swamp caves with exposed light sources such as candles being put out. If the latter happens, then I would pop your emergency teleport to Lumbridge and start over. For this step, I really suggest going slow and taking your time. When it comes to navigating the maze, begin by returning to the brooch and then going east. At the first intersection, continue east, then go north for a little while, followed by going west, looping around to the north before then zigzagging around south and east. Then continue northeast as the path curves around. It'll take you west briefly before turning back to continue east, whereby you'll eventually start to see goblins mining to your east. Then go as south as you possibly can within the cave for a rather long while before running east. Eventually you'll make your way to the mine and you'll want to find a goblin called Mistag who is usually hanging out around its entrance. Mistag can be further in the mine though, so you might have to look around for them a bit. Once found, talk to Mistag, and after your initial chat where he freaks out, then perform your goblin bow emote in front of him and continue through the chat where he mentions that he wants peace. Afterwards, chat to Mistag once again and ask, can you show me the way out of the mines, to have Mistag return you to the start of the caves. Once you're back at the start, run northwest and return back into the Lumbridge basement before climbing up the ladder to the ground floor, then the staircase to the middle floor, and returning to the Duke. Talk to the Duke and say, I've made contact with the cave goblins, to find out that although you say they're friendly, the Duke is worried about stolen silverware. Now pickpocket Sigmund nearby to steal a key from him and go into the room just south before using your key on the chest to open it, which will see you obtain some ham robes. Now go downstairs and exit out of the castle's back entrance before running northwest for a little while until you reach the ham hideout entrance, which is located just east of the Draenor village jail. After arriving, picklock the ham or humans against monsters hideout trapdoor until it opens, which can take a hot minute, especially if your thieving level is low. And once it's open, go down the door. Now a little south will be a crate. Search this crate to obtain the Lumbridge silverware that was stolen. Once you've obtained this, teleport back to Lumbridge and head into the castle, going up the staircase and back to the Duke. Talk to the Duke and say, I found the missing silverware in the ham cave, and continue through the chat whereby Sigmund will be fired and the Duke will hand you a peace treaty. Peace treaty in hand, go back down the staircase and then run into the kitchen and take the ladder into the basement. Go east and squeeze through the hole in the wall before right clicking and select follow on Khazgar to arrive back at the mine. Now locate Mistag who should be close by before talking to them and going through the chat. This will prompt a cutscene whereby Ertag, the head of the Dorgeshuun cave goblins, as well as the Duke, meet and agree to peace. It's all super cute, that is, until you notice Sigmund listening in and plotting against them. Once the cutscene finishes, bam, quest complete. You'll be awarded access to the Dorgeshuun mine, access to Nardok's bone weapon store that sells the Dorgeshuun crossbow, bone bolts and bone weapons, the ability to use the goblin bow and salute emotes, as well as 3000 mining experience and 1 quest point. Thanks so much for watching, catch you in the next quest.